Hey everyone, my name is Jesse and I'm excited to talk about how to build Microsoft To Do on steroids using Infinity software today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started talking about how to structure and build out Microsoft To Do, but using Infinity to leverage even more power in your to-do lists. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to create a source folder, call this 2022. And then I'm going to create a subfolder underneath this right here, right? I'm just going to call this my department, right? Obviously you can name it whatever you want, but we're going to call it my department. Now we're going to add other subfolders under here, most definitely. But I want to start with one folder so that way we can actually duplicate it and actually contain the structure of this one folder across all of our folders so that they kind of all have a similar look and feel to them. I'm going to make this folder table-based. Name is cool with me, so let's go ahead and give a name here. Complete some reports to send to our supervisor, right? Okay, super helpful. And we're going to add a few columns. So if you haven't used Infinity before, the columns, right? These are attributes. They have a bunch of different attribute types. But the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with labels, and I'm going to call this my status. So an advantage over Microsoft To Do is we actually can have different statuses, which can be used to track things in a different function. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take off allow empty, which means it's always going to start with my top status. And I'm going to call my top status new. On hold. You can get as detailed as you need to be in here, of course. This is completely customizable. I'm going to put question for supervisor in here, right? And then completed, exclamation mark. I can allow for creating new labels, so on the fly I can create new ones. And I'm not going to do multiple because I only want to really have one status at a time here. So I'm going to save that. I like to drag it here. That way I can kind of sort it by what needs to be done. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add another date, and we'll call this due date. That way if there's a timeline or a due date, I can add that in here. We're also going to need some details about what we're doing. Task details we can put in a long text. And then if we so choose, we can also add in a list, a checklist here. Subtasks. Okay, awesome. Subtasks, task details. On this view, I'm only going to care about status, name, and I could tick off any of these. I don't really care about details in here, and then I can put subtasks or due date. The next thing I want to add in here is a priority. I always use the rating, and I like to use the dots, and I'm just going to say priority. And we'll make this red, that way it stands out on a scale of 0 to 5. Perfect. This will allow me to easily rank the priority in this. So, right, basic structure in here of status, name, subtask, due date. Obviously, you can add as many things as you think you might need to in here. You could add progression, all of that stuff. I find keeping it pretty simple is ideal. So this is kind of the core framework that we're going to work from and then build off of. Now, this is the core like to-do list functions here, right, that we talked about. But now there's a couple things that we need to add in here to do some additional fanciness. So I'm going to add a column, and I'm going to put in checkbox for today. So Microsoft has this, I'm going to work on this today function that I love, absolutely love. So I'm going to mark on this with a checkbox of today. Am I doing this task today? I could give this a check, and it's going to drive some pretty cool functionality overall in the system. The other piece, we have a due date, but I also want to put in another date here, which I'm going to include a time field. I'm going to put reminder date. That way I can track due dates and reminder dates. So let's put our priority in here. Right. Obviously, you can organize these fields. I'm going to drop that out of the way in any particular order that you're wanting to. Right. I mean, whatever makes sense to you and whatever you want to see on this. But let's see here. I think I like priority here. I don't due date, reminder date. That's good. So then on my reminder date, I could pick maybe tomorrow, and I could even pick a time that it's going to remind me at, and we'll set that up in automations in later steps. Okay, this is pretty close. This looks good. I have my today flag, status. Now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to modify this. So I'm going to rename this to active tasks. So that's just my tab, active tasks. And then these are my statuses. If you want, you can get fancy and group it by your statuses. So it'll show you which tasks are in different areas. You could group it by your priority or which ones you're going to work today versus not today if you wanted to see that. For most of these subfolders items, I don't change any of these values because what I care about is how we manage them in our root folder here, our 2022 folder. So I keep this off, and then I do filter or status is, I always say none of, just because I can add more to it, where it's none of them are completed, right? I want to show anything that's in active status. If I complete it, it does go away, right? So I like to control it that way. And then I do want to sort based off of our priority from the most dots to the fewest dots in here. I'm going to take this tab, I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to rename this to completed. And then in here, I'm going to change this where it is completed so I can see that. And then I'm going to add in here, I like to take down, we don't need subtasks, we can keep name. I don't need status because everything will be completed. And then I like to group it by date completed. So I'll add a date completed in here, the formatting I like. And then I like to group it by the date so that I can see on this date and time, this is the work that I did, right? Let me click on this task and flip this back to a new and get that on my completed bucket. So essentially, I'm building out this core folder here because I'm going to duplicate this folder, and it's going to be how all of my other tasks and lists function, right? So I come in here, I have my today flag, I have my statuses that can grow, I have the name. If I were to click on it, I have additional details in here and how this is going to work. We can change this sort over, so priority, status is on top, name, priority next, due date, I like dates to be below, today to be on top, reminder date, date completed, and due date. Okay, this looks pretty good. I like this layout as well. I like this layout at the top here. So from now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and be able to duplicate this folder so that I can actually begin filling my to-do list in all the different areas. Right, and now I have my department tasks. I could have ones that are specific to pretty much anything, like personal to do, ideas and goals, right? These obviously would apply to what you're up to. Maybe not meeting, but customer tasks. Okay, awesome. So now I have all these different folders, and I'm going to spend a few minutes adding a few fake items in here just so we can kind of see the magic. Okay, I spent a few minutes seeding some ideas in these folders, about pretty much 3 a piece here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top 2022 folder here. When you come in, this is kind of how Infinity defaults it, but we're going to try to change it around a little bit because I really I like it different for sure, 100%. So I want to point out here we have the subfolder items. If we had this off, it'd be its own folder items. The subfolders are going to guarantee that we're pulling in the items below here, right? And I'm going to change this view, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to put this in a table view, and I'm going to rename this to planner. So this is going to be the place where we can plan our day. So we can look down here really easily and we can plan out what it is that we need to get done today. The things that we're going to care about obviously are priority. So are we going to do this today? Here's my priority, right? So I can easily check what I want to get done by today. But you can see it's not sorting by priority. So I'll come up here, sort by, and I'll say priority 9 to 1. Perfect. So now all of us highest priorities are coming in on top so that we make sure that we have that. There's too much going on here. So let's get these status is probably good to know about. In here, subtasks, details we don't care about. Due date and reminder date, we don't care about date completed. Obviously, these are what we might care about here. So we can read what the item is, and then we can assign whether we want to work on it today or not, right? This is a function that Microsoft To Do has that I really enjoy leveraging. Now, let's talk about some other items. So let's say we have, let's find these two items have the same priority, but what should sort first, right? We want something that has a closer due date to be a higher priority. So let's go ahead and adjust some of our sorting logic around a little bit. So I'm going to go up here to our sorts. I'm going to add a new sort, and I'm going to say due date. So I'll show you. Let's say that this one is due on Friday, but this one is due on Thursday. So you'll notice that Thursday now actually trumps the Friday due date, because even though they tie on the priority level, we want to work the one that's due sooner versus working the other one. So we can actually sort it off of that as well. So we're now looking at two different functions to make sure that we're looking at the topmost item. Now, some of you may say, I prefer by due date and then by priority, which totally makes sense, but 9 times out of 10, you'll have a priority and you won't really have a due date, just depending on your function. But you can absolutely do that, obviously, by switching those two sorts. I drive mostly by priority, and there are a few due dates that I do need to track, and so you can do it that way if you prefer. Your due dates will always trump anything without a to-do date. So we're just going to keep it like priority and then due date. Make sure that we're filtering up the items that we care about most. Now, so this is our planner. So it's structured in such a way that it will show us all of our tasks. And you can imagine my job, some of these folders have 30 items in them, and I need to figure out what of these 30, what are the top 5 I can work in this one folder, right? And so I need to be able to correctly assort and prioritize that, and I do that based off of priority. Of course, you can add a few other additional fields you want to track in here, but we're going to keep it pretty simple and look at just this. Now we're going to take this and we're going to duplicate this out, and I'm going to put this in the beginning spot, and I'm going to call this my day. And we're going to put a fun emoji because it looks nice. So in the my day filter, I'm only going to care about things that have the today checked. So these are anything that I've gone through my planner and I determined, okay, I need to call the dentist. I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to follow up with quotes from sales. I need to do this, and I need to do all 3 of these tasks, right? I determined that this is what my day looks like. And now when I go back to my day, this is the data that's showing for me, right? So I have a personal to-do, which I can drag to the bottom because I'm at work and I need to get these items done. Customer tasks, perfect. Now this view doesn't have to be grouped by source folders. I prefer it, but maybe you don't. So you can kind of group it by however you want. But what I do prefer here versus a table view is I really like the list view. I feel like it's nice and compact, right? You can see everything you need to get done. It's not as overwhelming maybe as a table view, and just allows you to really move the tasks to where they need to be, at least for me. I am going to take off the today because everything that has a checkbox today, due date, name, priority, awesome. And they'll come in here, and now I can see easily what is it that I'm going to get done. I can click on any of these items, see additional details and subtasks in here, and then update them and put them in an on hold status. So maybe I need to call Susie, but I called her and there's a question for the supervisor now. So I'm going to put that on here. And then same with quote from sales. I have a question for my supervisor, and I can notate that in the task details. What I want to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate my planner. Actually, I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to put it on. And I have team questions where I'm going to filter and say my status is any of question for supervisor. Now you could have questions for your supervisor, questions for fellow teammates, right? And I would actually group it by that status. Let me hide empty groups. Question for supervisor. So imagine you had a list here. When you do meet with your supervisor, you have all of your questions in here now, right? I could just flip over to this tab and I know out of everything, these are all of the questions that I have for my supervisor. Pretty neat in my opinion. The final thing that we're going to do on this source folder here that we want to track is obviously completed, right? We want to see what have we completed in our day. And so what I like to do is I will clone the planner. I'll duplicate this over, rename this to completed, and then we're actually going to group it by date completed. And filter status is completed. So anything that comes in its status, and then we don't need any of these filters on here, will come right here into our completed folder. So I'm coming down here, subscribe to beginning to begin. I did that, awesome. Completed will fall in here. You'll notice it didn't fall off our planner, and it needs to. So let's go ahead and filter that out. Status is none of, completed. So now we're hiding out those completed filters, and they're falling in over here now. And you'll notice this says undated. I don't like that. You shouldn't like that. It's because we don't have a due date. So I could say, oh, sorry, a completed date in here. So if we added a date completed, say like, oh, I completed this on Friday, it'd add this. But this is kind of a pain. We don't want to do this. So now we're going to dive into adding in a little bit of automation to make our life that much easier. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going up here to automations, going to manage, going to create an automation, and then say update completed tasks. And I'm going to put in some conditions where, let's say, attribute value changes, our status changes. We're going to add a condition because we only care about if our status changes to completed. So when status changes to completed, we will perform this action. What we're going to do is we're going to update an item. And we're going to update, obviously, our date completed. And then we're going to set a date offset of 0 days, just like that. So at the moment of trigger time, literally the exact moment second, update that to the no day offset. So that means today. Okay, great. I'll save that automation. And so now what's nice, I'll come in here, I'll clean out my date completed. Set this back to new. We'll go into my day and let's complete a few things. So send invoice to John. Completed. You'll notice Infinity in the bottom right. Once it processes the automation, will boop, boop, pop. Update completed task has been executed. Great. Bing, bing, bing. Drops it and auto dates it to today. Of course, I can change that data at any point, but this does allow me to auto tag the date completed, which is pretty cool. That way, as you're completing stuff off, you will have kind of a historical trend of when you're completing all of these, and they're grouped in here. You'll notice this didn't fall off. That's a filter, obviously, and that is kind of how Microsoft To Do works as well, giving you the option to filter those in or out. Okay, so we got the completed flag in here. Awesome. Now, there's another thing that we need to do, right? We need to, at the end of our day, take this entire list and remove it, right? That's kind of how Microsoft To Do functions. Every day, this list starts fresh. You get another chance, and I really like that clean slate, not to walk into all of these to-do lists again. So let's go ahead and build that piece out now. What we're going to do is we're going to click on one of these items, and we're going to actually add a new attribute. It's going to be a date attribute, and we're going to say, I'll call it like last day worked. Last day worked. Might not be the best name, but this is going to say, hey, this is the last time that this item was added to my to-do list, essentially. And so now we're going to kick in 2 different automations. First one is items for today. So when our today, right, when that attribute changes, and we should also say that it's checked, right? So when this is checked, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to update an item. We're going to set our last day worked question mark equal to 0 days, that will be today. So the last day worked, bam, it will be triggered and it will input. So when we check it, it's actually going to be adding, hey, this was the last day that this item was worked. It will put it in our to-do list. We have to tag it with this. So essentially it's needed in here. Like we need to, let me check that box. That way it needs to be in here so that we know what on our to-do list needs to be taken off for the day, right? So last day worked, 2/21/2022, and now we're going to tie that to an automation. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll come into automations, manage, we're going to create a new automation, and then we're going to say clear our day. And then we're going to say when a date arrives, last day worked, right? And then when is it going to happen? 0 days before. So anything today, and then we're going to literally be able to place this at like 11:59 p.m. in our time zone. So at 11:59 on the last day that this was worked, it's going to do an action. It's going to update an item. It's going to take our today list and it's going to leave it unflagged. Tick, tick, like that. Done. And so now at 11:59, it will go through here and it will tick off each and every item on our to-do list, unchecking it. The other kind of cool benefit with this metadata is you'll actually be able to see the last day that something was worked on your side, which can kind of let you see, oh, the last time I touched this was over a week ago. Maybe I should just close it out because I'm not working on it, or it was over a month ago. This was the last time I touched it, right? But it does give you some of that cool metadata. Okay, so this is the core framework. I think we're in a really good spot. We have all of our folders. We have our 2022, my day. I'm able to bring items in here. I can see priorities. It's sorting based off of those priorities, right? It just gives me a whole list of really cool information. My planner's structured out, right? Now, the only thing that I will say that is missing on here is some automations, right? We need to make sure we have all the automations that we're needing to drive ourselves to success. So a couple things. I'm going to go to automations. I'm going to create new automations. And this is going to be for a reminder. Right? And so we added in a reminder date, if you remember earlier, reminder date. And we can say 0 minutes before, 30 minutes before, whatever you so choose. Usually the reminder date and time I'm getting to select, so that's exactly the date and time that I want to be reminded. I'm going to do an action. I'm going to send a notification, right? And I'm going to send it to, I can pick obviously myself, all members. If it's a private board, it's just for you. So then I can say, actually let's do this in all caps. Reminder, $, and then whatever it's called, needs your review. Call John. You can free text whatever you want in here, add a bunch of metadata. The other thing I like to add in this is I'm going to update an item, and I'm going to take the today and I'm going to give it a checkbox. So when I set a reminder out, maybe it's for Friday, it's going to send me an email reminder and also stamp it with today flag. This is obviously optional and you can control whether you do that. But what this is going to do is it's going to send me an email to let me know, and then it's going to put it on my day list to make sure I do not forget it, right? And then it's right up top and easy for me to find and see every single day. Awesome, guys. If you found this content informative, please smash the like button. Consider subscribing. That would be awesome and help me out. I want to start building some more of these videos. I have a bunch of items I want to go through on Infinity. It's a sandbox software. You can accomplish a lot with it, but I really have been using it and finding a lot of success in just the to-do list functions alone. I found Microsoft To Do to be really awesome, but a little bit limiting when it came to some of this flexibility of managing statuses, managing priorities, and just all around having some additional project management flexibility that I'd like to see for my personal to-do list when completing items. So with that, I appreciate it. If you stuck with me to the end, that's awesome. I do have the template for this, so if you are interested in the template, you can send me over your email and I can share that template out to you. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at jschaa@beginningtobegin.com, and I can send you that template for exactly what was built on this video today. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.